You've raised a question that I want to just take an extra minute on because it's so important. And I don't really know whether our form of government is ideal at all in terms of solving the problem you describe. We have solved it one time. In World War II, we took a country that was semi-limping along, and we found ourselves in a world war. And what we did in a world war is we brought a bunch of people to Washington at $1 a year, whether it was Sidney Weinberg or Goldman Sachs, you just name them, and we gave them enormous power to reorient the resources of the United States to face the problem that they faced, which was to create a war machine. And what they did was they found Henry Kaiser, and told him to build ships. And they went to the Ford Motor Company and said, "You build tanks and some airplanes." And they reordered the industrial enterprise of the United States in a way that was unbelievable, because they had the power of the federal government and they had the ingenuity of American business and they had the facilities of American business, and it led to a very successful outcome. But can we do that in a peacetime where you've got 50 states and you have to get them to cooperate, and you don't have anyone that you can issue orders? But we haven't created the unity of purpose and the machinery that worked in World War II, where essentially everybody felt that their one job was to win the war, and we figured out how to use our industrial capacity to, in effect, defeat the Axis powers. And how do you recreate that with the present democratic system? I'm not sure I know the answer, but I sure know the problem. My dad was in Congress back in the 1940s, and it looked like a mess then. Although it was unified by the war to some degree, but it was still very partisan. Now, the problem we have, I think, is that partisanship, it seems to me, has moved toward tribalism, and tribalism just doesn't work as well. I mean, when it gets to tribalism, you don't even hear the other side, and tribalism can lead to mobs. I mean, it flows. I mean, you've seen it elsewhere. We've seen it to a degree here. So we have to refine in a certain way our democracy as we go along. We deal with the world we live in. But if I still had a choice of any place to be born in the world, I'd want to be born in the United States, and I'd want to be born today. I mean, it is a better world than we've ever had, and with present-day communications, we can also see much more how terrible it is in many ways. It's an exciting world. It's a challenging world, and I don't know the solutions on things. I do think that we do need to think about different solutions in terms of how we get important problems solved, and that we don't kid ourselves that something magic will happen, or that everybody will get together and we'll all just cheer and it'll go away by 2050 or anything. And how well we adapt to that, we will see. I would say so far it doesn't look very promising, but then I'm sure that when Lincoln looked at it, what was going on in the Civil War didn't look very promising either. So I think that the U.S. is capable of doing remarkable things, and I think it wouldn't surprise me if they do it again.
There's been some tension in the economic relationship of the United States and China. I think that tension has been wrongly created on both sides. I think we're equally guilty of being stupid. If there's one thing we should do, it's get along with China. And we should have a lot of free trade with China in our mutual interest. And I just can't imagine. It's just so obvious. There's so much safety and so much creativity that's possible. Think of what Apple has done by engaging in a partnership with China as a big supplier. It's been good for Apple and good for China. That's the kind of business we ought to be doing with China, and more of it. And with everything that increases the tension between the two companies is stupid, 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 and ought to be stopped on each side. And each side ought to respond to the other side's stupidity with reciprocal kindness. That's my view.
And it creates one enormous problem, of course, which is that you have the two superpowers of the world, and they know they have to get along with each other. Either one can destroy the other. And they're going to be competitive with each other. But part of it is trying, always in a game like that, is trying to judge how far you can push the other guy without them reacting wrong. And, if either side is a bully in some ways, they can get away with it to an extent because the alternative would drive them both into destruction. But if they push it too far, they increase the probability that something really does go wrong. So it's it's one of those game theory dilemmas. It's imperative that China and the United States both understand what the game is and understand that you can't push too hard. But both places are going to be competitive, and both can prosper. That's what really is. That's the vision that is out there, that China will have a more wonderful country, the United States will have a more wonderful country, and the two are not just compatible, they're almost imperative in terms of what's going to happen in the next 100 years or so. It's very interesting. I mean, we are the reserve currency, and I see no option for any other currency to be the reserve currency. And I think that nobody understands the situation better than Jay Powell. And but he's not in control of fiscal policy, and every now and then he drops a few hints. And there was no question that when the pandemic broke out, I mean, it was a semi-war-like situation, but nobody knows how far you can go with the paper currency before it gets out of control. And particularly if you're the world's reserve currency, nobody knows the answer to that. And you don't want to try and pick out the point at where it does become a problem, because then it's all over. I think we should be very careful. I mean, we all learned Keynesianism, and we applied it in World War II to the advantage of the country, and we did everything we could to prevent inflation during the war. And it's a very political decision now. It's a tribal decision to some degree. And you hope for leadership that actually will do something, recognizes the problem. And America's an incredible society, rich. We got everything going for us, but that doesn't mean we can just print money indefinitely as debt. And it'll be interesting to see how it turns out. Charlie?
Well, at some point, printing money to buy votes will be counterproductive.
Yep.
And we don't know exactly where that comes. And if something is going to be dangerous and unproductive, you ought to keep it a fair distance away. It's
tough to figure out where the breaking point is with society, but I don't think you want to come anywhere close to it.
Yeah, but it's also tough to have a mass of people unemployed. That's the tension.
Yeah. Well, that's why the Fed has two objectives in terms of employment and inflation, but they are not the ones that create the deficits. And so far, the system has worked pretty well, although, like I say, it's been...
So far, the man who's jumped off a tall building is all right until he hits the ground.
Yeah. And we can afford to take care of those people. And we've got some systems that work reasonably well, but there's a tension between, what about the person that doesn't do anything and all that kind of stuff. So these are not easy problems to solve, but I would say that by and large, we want the whole world to prosper. We do not want to be we don't want the United States to be a country of extraordinary prosperity and have the rest of the world
starving.
No, it isn't going to work, and it particularly isn't going to work in a nuclear world. So, and you can have your own feelings about it as a humane person, but it doesn't. It is not. It can be done better, and we've got the resources to do it. I mean, the output of this country. What can be done with a lot? The world just keeps looking at everything moving up as becoming sort of a base that leaves them somewhat dissatisfied. And with our prosperity, we can do a lot of things we couldn't do in 1930, and including taking care of people that get displaced by the fact that somebody else can do that work and improve their lot in life. And we got to make sure that we have the best system that takes care of the people who get displaced by that. But doing that in a political system we have and everything, we'll make a lot of mistakes along the way, but we got to keep moving in that direction. And
the interesting thing about it is that Adam Smith was right, that the free market capitalism automatically, with a lot of property in private hands and free trade and all that, automatically creates GDP per capita that grows and helps everybody, including the people at the bottom. Helps everybody a lot. But inherent in the process, there's a lot of pain in that free market cap. And nobody's ever figured out how to take all the pain out of it. We do have government safety nets to take some of the pain out. We make those safety nets a little bigger as time goes by. But apart from that, if you try and take all the pain out, you'll also take all the gains out of it. You won't have a growing GDP per capita.